I transmigrated into a sweet pampering novel as the Mafia heir. The female lead is Willow, the adopted daughter whom I had humiliated countless times. A cold-blooded, fierce Mafia rose. The illegitimate son male lead stood right in front of me, righteously declaring, "Scumbag, I won't let you hurt her again." Yet the next second, the icy, gloomy female lead pressed a knife against his neck. I solemnly announced, "Bro, I proudly declare you the clown of the year." Chapter 01. I transmigrated into the book at a rather coincidental point in the story. My father had just assigned the fierce, underworld femme fatale, Willow, to be my personal bodyguard. Although she silently accepted it, I, who had read the entire novel, knew very well that she didn't want to. The heroine admired strength and looked down on me, the black market rich kid who only talked about business. In her eyes, I wasn't cut out for the underworld at all. The original me also looked down on her for being a female bodyguard. He treated teasing her as entertainment, which made the heroine extremely disgusted. But to repay a debt of gratitude, she could only endure all the humiliation, and her personality grew darker and more withdrawn. And that was what gave the male lead, the illegitimate son, the chance to save her. He used her against me. But now that I'm here, I naturally won't let him succeed. So I took the initiative to find my father and suggested that I fight the heroine. Whoever knocked the other to the ground would win, and the winner would decide everything. In the arena, I stared expressionlessly at the cold-faced girl across from me and said loudly, "Use your full strength. I won't go easy on you just because you're a woman." She narrowed her eyes slightly and wordlessly took a ready-to-strike stance. "Begin." With that command, the match officially started. At first, she was full of contempt, but when all her attacks were effortlessly neutralized by me, she finally got serious. After I played with her long enough, I shifted my weight and my fist struck straight into her lower abdomen. The girl cried out from the pain, stumbled back a few steps, and fell to the ground. She looked at me in shock, biting her lip. "Why you?" I raised an eyebrow, my voice cold. "Willow, you lost." Chapter 02. From that moment on, I became Willow's boss. After that, quite a few people challenged me from time to time, but all of them were ultimately defeated. After all, in my previous life, I was a top-tier Sonda champion. The results didn't surprise me. But when Willow learned that I once got injured during a match, she couldn't help asking me, "Why do you always fight so desperately?" I glanced at her and answered seriously, "I know you look down on me. And not just you. Many people in the syndicate look down on me. They think I'm a spoiled rich kid who only knows how to brag. The reason I give everything I've got isn't just for you. I want everyone to see that my father's son is not a useless waste." She lowered her head, avoiding my gaze, her lips tightening. "I'm sorry. I misjudged you before. But I waved my hand. What I need isn't an apology. I need loyalty." Willow froze for a moment. I met her eyes and said earnestly, "Willow, there's only one thing you need to remember. As long as you're loyal to me, I will never fail you." As soon as I finished speaking, Willow lifted her gaze, not hesitating for even a second. Word by word, she answered, "Since I'm your person now, I'll follow you for the rest of my life." I looked at her and curled my lips into a faint smile. Conquering a woman takes only a few steps. First, subdue her with strength. Then move her with attitude. Who cares about my father? It's not like I take him that seriously. I'm just curious about one thing. Now that I've seized the advantage, what will the male lead do? Chapter 03. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. I was now a junior in college, yet I had already taken over part of my father's business operations, and I had moved into an apartment closer to campus. But today, I was suddenly summoned home by a phone call from my father. Sitting in the car on the way back to the villa, I said casually, "Willow, something interesting is going to happen today." Willow looked at me, full of confusion. I merely raised an eyebrow, not planning to explain. "The heroine, your male lead, is about to make his entrance today. Let's see whether this plot can still be changed. If it can't, then I'll just have to get rid of you. After all, even if my identity is fake, the achievements I've worked so hard for over the years are not something I'll hand over to someone else." Walking into the villa, I immediately saw the man sitting beside my father. He was dressed formally, his gaze clear. The moment he saw me, he politely stood up. My father patted his shoulder. But when he looked at me, his gaze carried a warning. His voice was cold as he said, "George, this is your younger brother, heir son. From now on, take good care of him." I frowned. Heir son, a name clearly meant for inheritance. So my father really valued him. I smiled indifferently, walked up to heir son, and the next second I raised my fist and punched him squarely in the face. Everyone's expression changed. My father immediately stepped in front of heir son, furious as he roared, "George, what do you think you're doing?" Heir son's face twisted from the impact. He held his nose, blood flowing uncontrollably, making him look utterly miserable. But even like that, he still stopped my father, insisting he was fine. If I didn't already know about the ruthless ambitions he hid so well, I might have been fooled too. I lifted my head and stared at my father, expressionless, my voice cold. "Dad, it's one thing to hide an illegitimate mutt outside, but bringing him home? Isn't that a little too insulting to me?" My father was livid. He slammed the table hard. "George, are you rebelling? How dare you talk to me like that?" Willow stood beside me, unafraid as she faced her adoptive father. Seeing this, my father's face darkened even further. I chuckled and waved my hand, and only then did Willow carefully retreat behind me. I continued, "Besides, since you've brought the bastard home, how could you leave the boy's mother outside?" As I spoke, I slowly approached Uncle Castillo, the gang's elder and my father's right-hand man. I slapped a thick stack of photos onto a woman's face and said with a smile, "Aunt Han, you've been having an affair with my father for so many years, and your child is already as old as I am. Tell me, does Uncle Castillo know about this?" The photos scattered all over the floor, various intimate poses between a man and a woman, leaving everyone stunned. Aunt Han's face turned deathly pale. She stumbled backward repeatedly, and with one misstep, fell directly onto the ground. But the next second, Uncle Castillo grabbed her by the hair and slapped her 3 times in a row. Her face swelled instantly, yet she was still trying to defend herself. "These are fake, they're not real." But when heir son saw her getting hit, he panicked and blurted out instinctively, "Mom." That sealed everything. I laughed freely. I said, well, even your son admitted it." Seeing the situation explode, my father tried to intervene and stop this farce. But Uncle Castillo, blinded by rage, ended up fighting with him directly. The entire hall descended into chaos. I watched the scene coldly, but a faint smile tugged at my lips. "Willow, we're leaving." Willow nodded. But just as we reached the door, someone blocked our path. Heir son glared at me and shouted, "You bastard! This is all you're doing." Then he turned to Willow. His eyes were full of sincerity and desperation. He grabbed Willow's wrist and said, "Willow, I won't let this scumbag hurt you again. I'm here to save you." But the moment his words fell, Willow pressed a knife straight against his neck. Heir son froze, his expression completely shocked. His face went pale, as if he simply couldn't understand any of this. I looked him directly in the eyes and said with a smile, "If you provoke her, are you sure you still want to live?" Then I made a solemn announcement. "Brother, I hereby crown you Clown of the Year." I never imagined heir son would be stupid enough to provoke her right in front of me. Did he really think Willow would go with him? Besides, all these years, I have never mistreated Willow. What saving was he even talking about? Unless he was still living inside the original storyline. Thinking of that, a hint of wicked amusement flashed across my eyes. This game just got a lot more interesting. Chapter 05. In the end, the matter fizzled out. I didn't know what my father promised Uncle Castillo, but Uncle Castillo actually swallowed his anger and tolerated this affair. My father even went all out and hosted a grand banquet to announce heir son's identity. As for Aunt Han, my father certainly wasn't stupid enough to bring her home. He might like Aunt Han, but the thing he loved most was still his reputation. He would never let the world know he was the kind of scumbag who had been having an affair with a subordinate's wife for years. And since Uncle Castillo only forgave my father because of interest, The only person he could vent his anger on was Aunt Han. In the banquet hall, Willow sat beside me and placed several photos on the coffee table. She said Mr. Wong sent her abroad. In the photos, Aunt Han was reluctantly saying goodbye to my father. She was wrapped tightly from head to toe, but the terrifying bruises on her skin were still visible. She even needed someone to support her while she walked. I sighed. Looks like Uncle Castillo didn't hold back at all. Setting down my glass, I said coolly, her son is now a member of the Wong family and will be one of the legitimate heirs. She spent years scheming for exactly this. So why would she leave so willingly? What did my father promise her? Willow rested her cheek on one hand as she replied. Mr. Wong promised her that he would bring her back in a few years. But privately, he ordered that she must never be allowed to return to the country again. She casually picked up my glass, took a sip, then pretended to realize it wasn't hers and gently placed it back down. I looked at her, and she blinked innocently at me, her expression pure. But the lipstick mark on the rim of the glass, along with the faint blush on her cheeks, was far too obvious. I smiled slightly. Just then, a hearty voice sounded behind us. Brother Willow, what are you two talking about? You look so happy. I turned around and saw my father and Erson, both dressed in luxurious formal attire. Erson's eyes were glued to Willow, burning with desire. Having something of mine be coveted by someone else displeased me, though I still smiled on the surface and said, we were talking about Aunt Han. Seeing his face stiffen, I let my gaze drift between him and my father. With a tone of regret, I said, Erson, do you know Aunt Han has been sent away and she'll never come back? Erson forced a smile, speaking with practiced humility. That was father's decision. I didn't know. I raised an eyebrow and exchanged a glance with Willow. Looks like Erson didn't know his mother would never be allowed to return. So their so-called mother-son bond was shallow to the extreme. Erson's gaze returned to Willow, and he spoke earnestly. Dad, I just returned home and haven't established myself yet. I'm short on people. How about letting my sister follow me? The smile instantly vanished from my face. My expression darkened in a heartbeat. Chapter 06. My father was probably trying to cultivate Erson, or maybe he'd long wanted to weaken my influence. So he readily ordered, then from now on let Willow follow you. Erson was overjoyed. Really? That's wonderful. As he spoke, he stepped forward to take Willow away. But I raised my hand and blocked him, my voice icy. I don't agree. My father froze. I stared at him coldly, my voice turning even harder as I enunciated each word. Willow belongs to me. I need her to protect me. My father frowned and cursed angrily. Bullshit. Protect you? Who in the entire syndicate can even challenge you? At this point, it's unclear whether she's your bodyguard or you're hers. I replied, I like it this way. It's none of your business. My father was speechless. I added, this is not up for discussion. I refused to yield even an inch. Someone I had trained for years was not going to become someone else's tool. Besides, after all these years, Willow was essentially my right hand. Losing her wouldn't kill me, but it would definitely cripple me, and I don't tolerate that. Especially not giving her to Erson. And beyond all that, if I handed Willow over this time, the outside world would think I was spineless. Wouldn't that mean anyone could step on my dignity? I had zero interest in that. Seeing my father's furious darkening expression, Erson hurried to persuade me. Brother, I know you can't accept me, but this family is run by father. How can you be so unreasonable? Besides, his gaze fell on Willow, and he continued, even if you look down on Willow, she's still a person, not an object. We should respect our own wishes. I glanced at Willow, who had her eyes lowered, and suddenly laughed. Fine. Erson hadn't expected me to relent. He shot me a look, then eagerly stepped in front of Willow. His voice was devout and gentle. Willow, would you be willing to follow me? I promise I'll never let anyone hurt you. His eyes were full of tenderness, as if she were a priceless treasure. Unfortunately for him, Willow took a step back in disgust and said, I only want to follow George. Erson clearly hadn't expected Willow to reject him. His expression froze instantly. My father, seeing this, glared angrily. Willow, how dare you defy my order? Don't forget who saved you. But Willow didn't hesitate. Word by word, she repeated, I will only follow George. My father exploded, slamming a wine glass onto the floor. Willow! The glass shattered instantly, shards scattering everywhere. I pulled Willow toward me, but she still got hurt. Seeing the cut on her arm, my vision darkened with fury. I walked up to my father. His expression was cold, but mine didn't waver in the slightest. My voice dropped low. Don't push your luck. His face twisted with rage. His hand trembled as he pointed at me. You two are rebelling, is that it? This is my Wong family. I let out a cold laugh. My father really was getting old. He could no longer see reality clearly. After his affair was exposed and his foolish banquet, he had already stirred up a lot of resentment. And besides, compared to an aging, muddle-headed ruler, everyone preferred a sharp, capable leader. Otherwise, how could I speak with such confidence? I smiled faintly. How could we rebel? I'm your most filial son. Then I gave him a sideways glance and added lightly, at least before you piss me off. My father looked around and realized that the subordinates who once followed him were now merely watching coldly. None of them intended to help him. His face shifted between blue and purple. In a fit of rage, he turned and stormed off. Ersan glared at me viciously, hatred burning so intensely in his eyes, he looked as if he wanted to tear me apart alive. But I smiled cheerfully back at him. When Willow stepped forward and took my arm, Ersan's expression twisted faintly. Only then did he turn and leave. On the way home, Willow frowned slightly. Her gaze lowered as she said, George, he's strange. Leaning back in my seat with my eyes closed, I opened them upon hearing her words. How so? Willow tilted her head, thinking for a moment before answering. He's completely convinced you treat me terribly. He secretly approached me many times, trying to persuade me to leave you. I smiled faintly, not surprised by her perceptiveness. Maybe he really does know something. I closed my eyes again, enjoying Willow's massage as I thought, how interesting. It seems Ersan truly isn't the male lead from the book I read. So, is he reborn? Or did he transmigrate too? And very soon, the answer revealed itself. Ersan sought me out on his own. Looking at me as if victory were already his, he smiled and said, I know you're not from this world. Let me tell you, I'm the real male lead. Willow belongs to me. No matter what you do, it's pointless. And you're no match for me. I replied, a match. Setting down my coffee cup, I said lightly, you're not even qualified to be my opponent. Ersan's expression shifted instantly. He gritted his teeth and said, George, don't be so smug. You're only ahead for now. But since I'm here, I'll set everything right. Do you really think someone like you can change the ending? I looked at him coldly, saying nothing. Seeing that I still didn't take him seriously, hatred twisted across Ersan's face. He snapped, just wait. I'll take back everything I lost. I blinked and smiled gently. I'll be watching. So, Ersan was a transmigrator. At the start, he probably assumed he was naturally the protagonist and didn't take me seriously at all. But now that he'd come yelling in front of me, it meant he had finally realized that the plot had changed and that my influence was no longer something he could shake. So then, what'll he do next? How exciting. Chapter 08. In the year I graduated, I successfully entered the corporation as the general manager. But in reality, I had already been the true controller of the corporation for a long time. The underworld was no longer a viable path. It was through years of my planning that the syndicate was cleansed and transformed into a publicly listed company. Now, the corporation was thriving. The former gang leaders had become shareholders and earned enormous profits every year, legally, without the constant fear and danger of the past. Naturally, I received their full support. As for my father, he was still the CEO in title, but he had long become an empty shell. At the shareholders' meeting, the shareholders proposed, for the 5th time, the transfer of leadership. Watching my father's dim, defeated expression, I curled my lips slightly. As expected, after the meeting, he came to me, with Ersan by his side. He said in a low, heavy voice, I'm willing to step down from the corporation, but I have one condition. Without even lifting my head, I replied coolly, If it's about arranging a position for Airsun, forget it. He glared at me and shouted, "Must you destroy him completely? He's your brother." I set down my pen and finally looked at them. My tone was indifferent as I said, "Dad, you really know how to joke. I don't even acknowledge you. Why would I acknowledge some illegitimate stray George?" My father grew even more furious. I slammed the pen onto the table, cutting him off. My voice rose sharply. "Address me by my title. The only reason I still call you Dad is because I don't want to make things too ugly and ruin the Wong family's reputation." But my gaze turned icy as I stared at both of them, anger flashing in my eyes. "You should know better than anyone that the moment you send assassins after me again and again, any father-son relationship between us ended." Both their expressions changed instantly. Airsun looked at me in shock. How did you know?" I ignored him completely and kept my eyes locked on my father. My voice was sharp as a blade. "Father, the Wong family is no longer something you can control single-handedly. You can choose to leave with dignity, or you can be thrown out in disgrace. I'll give you only one chance to choose." My father stared at me, both shocked and enraged. I didn't back down at all. After a long moment, his expression turned ashen, and he silently exited the office. Airsun quickly followed after him. Watching them leave, Willow narrowed her eyes. Her gaze, venomous like a snake's, locked onto their retreating figures. Her voice was icy as she said, "I can kill them. I should kill them." I stood and gently cupped her cheek. Seeing her face flush slightly, I smiled softly, none of the earlier fierceness visible. I said, "Death is far too easy for them. That's not what I want. If others don't offend me, I won't offend them. But since my father and Airsun dare to provoke me again and again, dare to try to kill me, then they'd better be ready for me to crush them completely." Chapter 09. After that day, my father did not step down from the corporation. But I wasn't in a hurry, because something far more interesting happened. Breaking news: stock market genius Airsun bets big on Nexafarm. Investors rush to follow. Nexafarm's market value skyrockets by billions in 10 hours. Experts warn of investment risks. Avoid blindly following. Airsun's name was trending at the very top of the hot search. For the past 6 months, he had been frequently appearing online. He repeatedly placed large stock investments, and every single time he won big. Word spread quickly. He became the legendary stock market prodigy who never lost, the most anticipated investment genius among retail traders. Many experts advised the public not to follow the trend blindly, but their warnings had little effect. I opened the comments section, and unsurprisingly, it was full of worship for Airsun and ridicule toward the experts. Some comments read, "What useless experts. Last time they said not to follow, and what happened? My buddy made tens of millions overnight. Those trash experts probably secretly followed the trend themselves." With a genius like Airsun hitting 100% success, only an idiot would listen to fake experts. Many reporters rushed to interview Airsun. One reporter asked, "Mr. Wong, it's said that you invested in Nexafarm this time, and many investors have followed your lead. Do you have anything to say about that?" Airsun smiled confidently, brimming with certainty. "Thank you for your trust. The results this time will definitely satisfy everyone even more." His attitude of absolute victory sent his fan base into a frenzy. I turned off the television, smiling in satisfaction. I do like his confidence. Nexafarm does indeed have huge growth potential. This investment truly is guaranteed profit. Willow lifted her gaze to me and asked, "Should we release the information we gathered?" I waved my hand lazily. "Not yet. We'll wait for when it becomes even more fun." Chapter 10. And as expected, after one market cycle, Nexafarm stocks surged dramatically, becoming a massive dark horse. The investors who followed Airsun earned huge profits, while those who didn't follow were beating their chests in regret. The stock god's reputation soared to its peak, even surpassing that of top-tier celebrities. Countless interview programs scrambled to invite Airsun. During an interview, a reporter asked about his next investment target. Airsun sighed helplessly and said, "My brother once asked me who I'd bet on next. I didn't tell him, and he threatened to kick me out of the Wong family unless I gave him the information. Instantly, the entire internet erupted with attacks against the Wong Corporation and against me. Shocking major Wong family scandal exposed. Eldest son George has secretly seized control for years. George threatens stock god heir son, forbidding him from influencing investors, and tries to kick him out of the Wong family. I didn't tell the PR department to suppress anything. Instead, I watched the rumor spread. I even actively agreed to a reporter interview. The reporter asked, "Mr. Wong, do you have anything to say about the online accusations? Did you threaten the stock god heir son to stop sharing his investment insights?" I nodded. "Yes, I did." She continued, "Were you trying to monopolize the profits for yourself?" Monopolize? I shot her a sideways glance and let out a cold, disdainful laugh. What a joke. Since when has the Wong family ever cared about such pocket change? The reporter froze, her face flushing with embarrassment. After all, the Wong Corporation was a listed company. Why would it care about a few million? I looked around the room, my expression serious. The stock market is unstable. Investments require caution. When investors rush into a single stock in a frenzy, it disrupts market balance. And in severe cases, it can even cause the market to crash. Do any of you want another economic bubble? The financial reporters looked at one another, unable to respond. I continued, "In my view, blindly following trends is foolish. Believing anyone can guarantee profits and letting that belief drive her behavior is even more foolish. As his older brother, and as a member of the market, I simply issued a warning. Take it or leave it." With that, I prepared to leave. But an entertainment reporter blocked my path, anxiously asking, "What about the rumor that you've stripped him of power? Why is there no position for heir son in the corporation? Isn't it because you maliciously expelled him?" I turned back, faced the camera, and said with a contemptuous smirk, "An illegitimate child. How could he possibly enter the corporation?" A single sentence directly exposed Erson's true identity. It instantly enraged one of Erson's crazed fans in the crowd. Wielding a knife, the fan charged at me, screaming, "Don't you dare slander our stock god brother. Die!" The next second, the person was slapped to the ground by Willow. Bodyguards swarmed forward, pinning the attacker to the floor. I didn't spare them a single glance. I simply left with Willow at my side. Chapter 11. After that interview, Erson's identity as an illegitimate child could no longer be hidden. The internet was filled with discussions. And right at this time, Erson placed another bet, still on Nexapharm. Naturally, countless investors rushed in once again. Meanwhile, I ordered Willow to have the corporation release a statement cutting ties with him. Yes. When I looked up, I unintentionally spotted the bruise on Willow's cheek. I frowned. "You're injured? Who did this?" Willow instinctively turned her head away. "It's fine. Just a minor injury." I took out the medical kit. "Come here." She shook her head, embarrassed. "Really, it's nothing." I pinched the bridge of my nose, my voice low and stern. "I'll say this one last time. Come here." Only then did Willow obediently sit beside me. As I applied ointment, I asked, "Someone came to the company looking for trouble?" She nodded, looking a bit aggrieved. "Yes. Ever since the last attack, I had strengthened the security around the company. But crazed fans still occasionally showed up." "Still, with your skills, how did you get hurt?" I asked. Besides me, who could even land a hit on her? Willow lowered her head and whispered, "I got distracted." "Distracted?" I asked, puzzled. She lifted her gaze to mine and said clearly, word by word, "Because I was thinking about you." Willow looked at me from such a close distance. Her face slightly flushed, yet she didn't avoid me this time. I instantly understood. A faint smile curved my lips as I held the back of her head and kissed her. Holding Willow's trembling body in my arms, I repeated once more, "Willow, remember, never betray me. Otherwise, I will kill you." Willow wrapped her arms around me tightly, her voice sincere. "I will never betray you, Master." I didn't answer, but the smile on my lips rose high. My heart finally settled. For a moment, I allowed myself to sink into this tenderness. Only after a while did I speak softly. In 3 days, release the information. I was running out of patience. This game was about to begin. Chapter 12. Rumors broke out that the heiress of Nexa Farm had an ambiguous relationship with Ersan. Many people began to suspect that the reason Ersan kept betting on Nexa Farm was because of romance. But even faster than the rumors came the news that Ersan was going to propose to Maria, the Lin family's heiress. On the day of the proposal, I was invited to attend. I watched the extravagant proposal banquet with my own eyes, and I calmly observed Ersan basking in his triumph. After he stepped down from the stage, Ersan wrapped an arm around the Lin heiress, stood in front of me, and said with a smug smile, "George, even without Willow, I've already beaten you." The Lin family was a rising star in the financial world, soaring rapidly. Marrying the Lin heiress was naturally something to boast about. But to me, Willow never needed to be compared to anyone. I smiled slightly. "Congratulations." Seeing my calm expression, Ersan glanced at Willow with unwilling eyes. He said, "Willow, you'll regret this one day." But Willow didn't even spare him a glance. Ersan gripped his wine glass so tightly it looked like it might shatter. Throughout the entire banquet, he busied himself trying to network with various CEOs and business tycoons, as if he intended to climb straight to the top in a single leap. He didn't notice the person standing in the shadows of the banquet hall, eyes full of hatred staring daggers at him. I glanced at Willow. She understood instantly and walked toward that person. After Ersan and Maria became engaged, Ersan frequently appeared with Maria on various shows, flaunting their love. But during one live broadcast, a man suddenly barged into the studio with a group of people. Everyone on set was startled, and the security guards rushed forward, but they were quickly subdued by the intruders behind him. The entire studio fell into shock. The man scanned the room, locked his furious gaze on Ersan and Maria, and stormed straight toward them. The moment he opened his mouth, he exploded. "You bastard! Daring to steal my woman. Today, I'm crippling you. And you filthy liar. If I hadn't checked the cameras, I wouldn't have known you were wearing the wedding dress I bought you while lying on our marital bed with him. You scumbag couple, you still dare to flaunt your love." Ersan and Maria's faces went stiff immediately. They tried to explain, but the man wouldn't hear a word. With a single command, his people grabbed both of them and delivered a merciless beating. The studio descended into total chaos. And this entire scene was being broadcast live, watched by millions in real time. It triggered a massive wave of discussion online. Watching the broadcast of the two scumbags fleeing in humiliation, I couldn't stop laughing. I commented, "These people really are something else." The man causing the scene was Maria's former fiancé, Martin. They had already arranged their wedding, but after Martin's family ran into sudden misfortune, she abandoned him and cheated with Ersan. Cheating wasn't enough. Because of Ersan's preferences, she even avoided breaking off the engagement until she was clearly pregnant, only then canceling the wedding. I despise people like that. So I lent Martin a hand, gave him some manpower, and clearly, he didn't disappoint me. That night, Ersan called me. His voice was sharp and hysterical as he yelled, "It was you. It was you who set this up, wasn't it?" I replied calmly, "I set it up," and let out a cold laugh. "Have some shame. You two messed around on your own. What does it have to do with me?" On the other end, Ersan roared, "George, I'm going to kill you." But instead of getting angry, I chuckled. My voice was cold as I said, "Ersan, you'd better hold on. Otherwise, without the main character, how is this show supposed to go on?" Ersan's past scandals spread across the entire internet in an instant. His reputation became notorious overnight. In order to clear his name, Ersan began placing investment bets even more frequently, hoping to use this method to regain the public's trust. At this point, all he could rely on was his knowledge of the future, gambling his entire future on it. I leisurely flipped through the documents in my hands. Unfortunately for him, this time he was bound to be disappointed. Chapter 15. Nexa Farm was exposed for conducting human experimentation, atrocious, inhumane practices. Worse, they had cut corners on emergency medications, causing patients who bought them to suffer and die. Even their signature medical equipment was revealed to be cheaply made and dangerously low in quality. Once the news broke, Nexapharm's stock plummeted instantly. Countless investors saw their entire fortunes turn into bubbles. Then the news directly criticized Airsun for encouraging investors to follow his bets, suspecting him of betraying national interests. He was detained for investigation. Although nothing incriminating was found, in the end, his reputation was completely ruined. He became a public enemy, especially to the investors who had blindly followed him. They wanted nothing more than to tear him apart alive. I originally thought Airsun would be hiding at home, too afraid to show his face. But unexpectedly, he came to me on his own. His face was deathly pale, his eyes bloodshot, and he looked as though he had aged more than 10 years. "George, this was your plan too." I answered honestly, yes. It took quite some effort. Hatred flickered in his eyes, mixed with something complicated. Finally, he dropped to his knees before me. "Brother, why are you targeting me every step of the way? I already left the Wong Corporation. I'm not trying to fight you for anything anymore." I asked, "Is that so?" My tone was indifferent. Kneeling before me, Airsun nodded frantically. "Really? Just give me some money and let me go abroad. I'll never come back. Please, please, big brother." He raised his head, looking at me with desperate humility as if I were his lifeline. Unfortunately for him, I wasn't. I was the devil who would take his life. I patted his cheek, studying his pathetic state, and suddenly let out a cold laugh. "If you really weren't trying to fight me," I said, "then why did you secretly contact our shareholders? Why did you push my father to speak for you? Why did you buy off my secretary to report my every move to you? Why did you steal confidential corporate documents?" His face turned even paler than paper. He trembled violently, whispering, How did you know? When did you find out?" I kicked him to the floor. "I knew from the very beginning, you idiot." I glared down at him from above. "Do you think I kicked my father out of power because of luck? It was ability." I leaned over him, my voice cold enough to freeze blood, speaking each word clearly. The ability to generate greater profits. Chapter 16. Airsun seemed completely stunned by the flood of information, his eyes blank and unfocused. I let out a cold laugh and mocked him. "This is the business world, not a child's game, and certainly not some entertainment show. People don't care about rumors. What they care about is profit, and I can give them that. Tell me, why would they betray me and choose a useless man who can't even enter the corporation?" He glared at me, his expression twisted, finally voicing the confusion that had been eating him alive. "Then why did they agree?" I smiled. "Clown, they were playing with you, of course." My smile deepened as I added carelessly, "Otherwise, wouldn't life be unbearably boring?" His eyes turned bloodshot. He lunged at me like a madman, screaming, "Impossible! Impossible! I'm the protagonist. How could I lose?" But before he even touched me, my fist slammed into his abdomen. He screamed, collapsing on the ground, curling up in pain. I stared at his pathetic state with cold eyes and chuckled lightly. There is no such thing as a born protagonist. In this world, only the winner becomes king. I ordered people to throw him out the door. Even from far away, his agonized cries could still be heard. But no one cared. His fiancée had already abandoned him after the Lin family collapsed. My father had long given up on him as well. He had lost all value. Chapter 17. I watched Willow walk toward me from afar, and I stepped forward to pull her into my arms. I said, "Willow, it's all over. When I first arrived in this world, I was alone. If I didn't change the script, I would inevitably follow the original plot. Fall into ruin, become a bloody corpse, a disposable stepping stone for the so-called male lead. So I had no choice but to plan every step to seize greater power. And Willow, as the heroine, had originally been nothing more than a tool for me to use. But after years together, that initial calculation slowly became genuine emotion. I didn't know what the future would be, but I had never lied to her. If she ever betrayed me, I truly would eliminate her. Willow dove into my arms, hugging me tightly. She shook her head and said, "It's not over. Between us, there's more to come." I lower my head and kissed her. I said, yes, our life together. There are no predetermined protagonists. No matter the world, only the victor becomes king. That is the rule.